I, 26F, always believed that love was about partnership. It was about building a life together, brick by brick. My fiancé Mark seemed to believe that too. Or at least, he said he did. We were supposed to be a team. We were days away from our wedding, and everything felt almost perfect. The venue was booked. The flowers were chosen. Our families were gathering, and the excitement was a low hum in the air. But under that hum, there was another sound, a discordant note I had been trying to ignore for months. That note was my future mother-in-law, Carol. She had a way of smiling that didn't reach her eyes. She had a talent for compliments that felt like tiny, sharp digs. I told myself it was just her way. I told myself she was nervous about her only son getting married. I made excuses because I loved Mark, and I wanted a peaceful family. I thought peace was worth biting my tongue for. I thought swallowing a little pride was a small price to pay for a happy future. I was wrong. The price was much higher than I ever could have imagined. The rehearsal dinner was supposed to be a celebration. It was held at a fancy restaurant that Carol had insisted upon. She said it set the right tone. Mark's father, David, sat quietly at the head of the table, smiling and nodding as Carol held court. My parents were there, looking happy and proud. My best friend and maid of honor, Sarah, 26F, sat next to me, giving me supportive looks whenever Carol aimed a comment my way. The whole evening was a performance, and I was just trying to remember my lines. The main courses were cleared away. Champagne was poured for toasts. Mark stood up and gave a lovely speech about how he met me and how he couldn't wait to spend his life with me. I felt a warmth spread through my chest. Maybe I was overthinking things. Maybe everything was going to be okay. Then my father stood up and talked about how happy he was to welcome Mark into our family. It was all so normal, so full of hope. Then it was Carol's turn. She stood up, holding her champagne flute. She smiled that tight, polished smile. She started by talking about her wonderful son, how she raised him to be a man of taste and ambition. She went on for several minutes about his accomplishments. It felt less like a toast to us and more like a resume reading for him. Finally, she turned her attention to me. "And Anna," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness, "we are so thrilled to have you join our family." She paused and looked down at my hand, which was resting on the white tablecloth. She pointed at my engagement ring with her flute. "Of course," she said, her voice loud enough for the entire table to hear. "The ring should have been bigger." A sudden, sharp silence fell over the table. Every eye darted from her to my hand and then to my face. My smile froze. The warmth in my chest turned to ice. It wasn't just a dig. It was a public humiliation. She was telling everyone at that table, my parents included, that I wasn't good enough. That what Mark offered me wasn't good enough. That our beginning was somehow lacking. I looked at Mark. He was staring at his plate, his ears turning red. He didn't say a word. He didn't defend me. He didn't look at his mother and tell her she was out of line. He just sat there, in a puddle of his own discomfort, leaving me to drown alone. In that moment, the discordant note I had been ignoring for months became a screaming siren. The excuses I had made for Carol, for Mark, they all crumbled away. I felt Sarah's hand on my arm. My own hands were trembling. I looked at my ring. It was a beautiful ring that Mark and I had picked out together. It wasn't a giant rock because we had decided to put more money toward a down payment on a house. It was our decision. It was a symbol of our future, a future we were supposed to be building as a team. And his mother had just spat on it. I took a slow, deep breath. I could feel my parents' worried eyes on me. I could feel the pity from Mark's extended family. I could feel Carol's triumphant gaze waiting for me to shrink, to blush, to maybe even cry. I decided I would do none of those things. I stood up. My chair scraped against the floor, a loud, ugly sound in the quiet room. Every head snapped toward me. Mark finally looked up, his eyes wide with panic. "What are you doing?" he mouthed silently. I looked directly at Carol. Her smug smile faltered for just a second. She didn't expect this. She expected me to take it. "You're right, Carol," I said, my voice shaking only slightly. "You are absolutely right." A confused murmur went through the table. Carol looked pleased with herself, thinking I was agreeing with her. "A bigger ring would have been lovely," I continued, my voice growing stronger, "but we couldn't afford one." I paused and looked from Carol to Mark, who was now pale. "Especially since my entire life savings mysteriously disappeared from my bank account last month," I said, letting the words hang in the air. The $50,000 I had saved for our house. The silence in the room was no longer just quiet. It was heavy. It was suffocating. Carol's face went from smug to sheet white. David, her husband, looked at her in complete confusion. My own parents looked horrified. Mark shot up from his chair. "Anna, don't," he hissed. "This is not the time or the place." "You are wrong," I said, turning to him. My voice was cold now. "This is the perfect time, and it is the perfect place." I looked back at the sea of shocked faces. I felt a strange sense of calm. The decision had been made. "I have been trying to figure out where that money went," I said. My eyes locked on Carol. "I have been losing sleep over it, but your comment about the ring, it just made everything click into place. The little things you've bought, the sudden upgrades, the way you talk about money as if it grows on trees." Carol opened her mouth, but no sound came out. She looked like a fish, gasping for air. "What are you talking about?" David finally asked, his voice rough. "What money?" I turned to him. "My down payment fund, David. $50,000. It was transferred out of my account 6 weeks ago. I filed a fraud claim with my bank. They've been investigating." I let that sink in. The word investigating had a nice, sharp edge to it. Then I looked back at my fiancé, the man I was supposed to marry in 2 days, the man who sat silently while his mother insulted me. "Mark," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. "Did you know about this?" He couldn't meet my eyes. He just stared at the table, his jaw clenched. That was all the answer I needed. That was the answer I had been dreading for weeks. "I see," I said softly. I pulled the engagement ring off my finger. It felt surprisingly light. I placed it on the table next to my untouched glass of champagne. It made a small, definitive clink. "I think this belongs to you," I said to Mark. "Maybe you can sell it. You're going to need the money." I turned to Carol one last time. Her face was a mask of pure, unadulterated fury. The polite, sweet facade had vanished. "Thank you for dinner, Carol," I said, "and thank you for your honesty. You've given me the best wedding gift I could have ever asked for. The truth." Then I turned around and walked out of the restaurant. I didn't look back. I could hear shouting erupt behind me, a chaotic mess of accusations and denials, but I just kept walking. Sarah was right behind me, her hand on my back. The cool night air hit my face, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could finally breathe. The wedding was off. My old life was over. And my new one was just beginning. The walk to Sarah's car was a blur. My mind was racing, replaying the scene over and over. The shock on their faces. The way Mark wouldn't look at me. The pure, unfiltered hatred in Carol's eyes when her mask finally slipped. It was terrifying, but it was also liberating. The lie was over. I didn't have to pretend anymore. I didn't have to smile and nod and swallow my feelings to keep a peace that was never real to begin with. "Are you okay?" Sarah asked as she unlocked her car. I shook my head. "No, but I will be." I got into the passenger seat and just sat there, staring out the window as she started the engine. The city lights blurred past, a smear of color and motion. I felt numb. It was the kind of numbness that comes after a great shock, a protective layer before the real pain sets in. "I can't believe you did that," Sarah said, her voice a mix of awe and concern. "That was the bravest thing I've ever seen." "It didn't feel brave," I said honestly. It felt like I had no other choice. It was either that or just disappear. Let them walk all over me forever. Well, you definitely didn't do that, she said with a small, grim laugh. You nuked them from orbit. I managed a weak smile. I guess I did. We drove in silence for a while. I thought about the bank investigation. I had filed the claim 2 weeks ago after discovering the transfer. The bank representative had been very serious. He told me it was a large amount and that they would look into it thoroughly. He had asked if I suspected anyone I knew. I had said no. I couldn't even let myself think it. How could I suspect the man I was about to marry? How could I believe he would be capable of such a monumental betrayal? But the signs were there, weren't they? Looking back, they were everywhere. Mark had been so cagey about our finances lately. Whenever I brought up the house fund, he would change the subject. He'd say things like, "Let's not worry about that now. Let's just focus on the wedding." I thought he was just stressed. I thought he was trying to protect me from the boring details. And Carol. Her spending had been getting more and more extravagant. A new designer handbag. A weekend spa trip that she claimed was a special deal. She had even gifted us a new top-of-the-line coffee machine for our apartment. A machine that cost over $1,000. I had asked Mark how she could afford it. He had shrugged and said his dad probably got a bonus. It was all lies. All of it. They were spending my money. My hard-earned money that I had painstakingly saved since my first job out of college. I had worked weekends. I had packed my own lunches. I had said no to vacations with friends. All for a dream of a home that they had stolen from me to fund their own selfish desires. What did the bank say exactly? Sarah asked, pulling me from my thoughts. They said the transfer was initiated online. I explained, my voice flat. From an IP address they were tracing. They said it was an internal transfer to another account at the same bank. Whose account? She asked. They couldn't tell me due to privacy policies, I said. Not without a police report or a court order. They could only confirm that the transfer happened and that it looked suspicious. I had been waiting for them to finish their internal investigation before I decided whether to go to the police. I had hoped, prayed that it was all a terrible, complex mistake. A computer glitch. A sophisticated hack. Anything but this. Anything but the person I loved being the thief. So, when you said that at the table, Sarah said carefully, you weren't 100% sure it was them? My gut was sure, I replied. My heart didn't want to believe it, but my gut knew. The way Carol talked about the ring, it was so dismissive of our financial reality. It was the way a person talks when they have a secret source of income. When they think money is just an endless river. It was my money. I was her secret source. The anger was starting to push through the numbness now. Hot and sharp. And Mark, I whispered, the name feeling like ash in my mouth. He knew. He let her. He probably helped her. We arrived at Sarah's apartment. She lived in a small one-bedroom place in a quiet part of town. It felt like a sanctuary. She made me a cup of tea and I sat on her couch, wrapped in a blanket. My phone started buzzing relentlessly. I glanced at the screen. Dozens of missed calls and texts. From Mark, from his father, David, from his aunts and uncles. I even saw one from my own mother. I ignored them all and turned the phone to silent. I couldn't talk to any of them right now, especially not Mark. What could he possibly say? That he was sorry? Sorry he did it or sorry he got caught? You need to call your parents, Sarah said gently, reading my mind. They're probably worried sick. She was right. I found my mom's number and pressed call. She answered on the first ring. Anna, oh, thank God. Are you okay? Where are you? Her voice was tight with anxiety. I'm okay, Mom, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I'm at Sarah's apartment. What on earth happened? That woman, what she said was horrible. And then what you said about your money, is that true? Yes. Mom, I said, my voice cracking. It's all true. Someone took $50,000 from me, and I think it was Mark and his mother. I heard my father's voice in the background. Is she all right? Let me talk to her. My mom handed the phone over. Anna, sweetheart, my dad said, his voice firm and protective. Don't you worry about a thing. We are leaving right now. We'll deal with these people. You just stay with Sarah. Are you safe? I'm safe, Dad, I said, a wave of relief washing over me. Having my parents in my corner felt like a lifeline. Good, he said. We love you. We'll be there as soon as we can. Just try to breathe. We'll handle this. I hung up the phone and finally let the tears come. I cried for the future I had lost. I cried for the man I thought I knew. I cried for my own stupidity. For ignoring all the red flags because I wanted to believe in the fairy tale. Sarah just sat with me, holding my hand, letting me grieve for the life that had been stolen from me long before the money ever was. After the storm of tears passed, a cold calm settled over me. The grief was still there, a heavy weight in my chest, but something else was growing alongside it. Determination. I wasn't just a victim. I had a choice. I could crumble or I could fight back. I chose to fight. What's my first step? I asked Sarah, wiping my eyes. Legally, I mean. Sarah, ever practical, was already pulling up websites on her laptop. Okay. First thing tomorrow morning, you're calling the bank again. You tell them you have a strong suspicion of who committed the fraud and that it's your fiancé and his mother. That changes things. It makes it a domestic issue, not an anonymous hack. Will they tell me whose account it went to then? I asked. They still might not, she said, but it will put more pressure on them. The next step is a police report. You have to file one, Anna. A $50,000 theft is a felony. This isn't a small disagreement. This is a serious crime. The word crime sent a chill down my spine. It was one thing to think of Mark as a liar and a cheat. It was another to think of him as a criminal. But that's what he was. He had committed a crime against me. Okay, I said, nodding. A police report. Then what? Then you need a lawyer, she said, her expression serious. You need someone who can help you navigate this. They took your money. You need to get it back. A lawyer can advise you on whether to pursue this civilly, criminally, or both. My phone buzzed again. I looked down and saw a text from a number I didn't recognize. I opened it. This is Chloe, the text read. Mark's sister. I am so sorry for what happened tonight. My mother is a monster. Are you okay? I stared at the message. Chloe had always been the quiet one in the family. She was younger than Mark, and she always seemed to be trying to stay out of her mother's way. At the dinner, she had looked just as shocked as everyone else. I hesitated for a moment, then typed back a simple reply. I'm at a friend's house. I'm safe. My phone immediately started ringing. It was her. I let it go to voicemail. I wasn't ready to talk to anyone from that family. A moment later, another text came through. I understand if you don't want to talk, it read, but I think I can help you. I know things you should know. Please call me when you can. I showed the text to Sarah. What do you think? I asked. It could be a trap, she said cautiously. She could be trying to do damage control for her family. Or, I said, thinking aloud, she could be telling the truth. She never seemed to like her mom very much. She always looked scared of her. It's a risk, Sarah said. But if she really knows something, it could be the proof you need. I decided to wait. I needed to think. My brain felt scrambled, like a computer with too many tabs open. I needed to focus on one thing at a time. The bank, the police, a lawyer, and Chloe. Chloe might be the key. The next morning, I woke up on Sarah's couch feeling like I had been hit by a truck. Every part of my body ached, but my mind was surprisingly clear. The path forward was laid out in front of me, and I just had to start walking. My parents had arrived late last night, their faces etched with worry. My dad hugged me so tight I thought my ribs would crack. My mom just held my face in her hands and told me how strong I was. They were staying in a nearby hotel, a war council ready to be deployed. First, the bank. I called the fraud department again. I spoke to the same representative, a man named Mr. Harrison. "Good morning, Ms. Davies," he said. "I was just reviewing your file." "Good morning," I said, my voice steady. "I have new information about my case." "Oh?" he said, a note of interest in his voice. "Please go on." "I believe I know who transferred the money," I said. "I believe it was my fiancé, Mark Peterson, and his mother, Carol Peterson. I believe they moved the money into an account belonging to one of them." There was a pause on the other end of the line. I could hear the faint clicking of a keyboard. "I see," Mr. Harrison said slowly. "That does change the nature of the investigation, Ms. Davies. This would be classified as a form of domestic financial abuse." Hearing the official term for it made my stomach clench. Domestic financial abuse. It sounded so clinical, so serious. It was real. "What does that mean for the investigation?" I asked. "It means we will look specifically at accounts associated with those individuals," he said. "However, I must reiterate that due to federal privacy laws, I cannot disclose the details of another person's account to you. For us to proceed with recovering the funds, we will require an official police report. Once you have a case number, we can cooperate fully with law enforcement." "I understand," I said. "I will be filing a report today." "Very good," he said. "Please call me back with the case number once you have it. We will do everything we can to assist." I hung up the phone. Step 1, complete. Next, the police. My dad insisted on going with me. He said he wanted to be there for support, but I knew he also wanted to make sure they took me seriously. We drove to the local police station in silence. The place smelled of stale coffee and disinfectant. I felt out of place in my jeans and sweater, like I had wandered into a scene from a television show. We sat down with an officer, a woman with tired eyes and a patient demeanor named Officer Miller. I told her the whole story. I started with the missing money, the date it was transferred, the amount. Then I told her what happened at the rehearsal dinner. I told her about Carol's comment, about Mark's silence, about my public accusation. She listened intently, taking notes. "And you're certain your fiancé had access to your online banking information?" she asked. I nodded, feeling a fresh wave of shame. "Yes, we lived together. I thought we were building a life together. I trusted him. I never thought he would—" My voice trailed off. "It happens more often than you think," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "You did the right thing by coming to us." She explained the process. They would open an investigation. A detective would be assigned to my case. They would subpoena the bank records for my account and for Mark's and Carol's accounts. If the evidence showed that they had taken the money without my consent, they could be charged with grand larceny. "Grand larceny," my dad repeated, the words sounding heavy and foreign. "Yes, sir," Officer Miller said. "For an amount of this size, it's a serious felony." I walked out of the police station with a case number written on a small piece of paper. It felt like a ticket to a new, terrifying chapter of my life. But it also felt like a weapon. I wasn't just a heartbroken woman anymore. I was a complainant in a criminal investigation. When we got back to Sarah's apartment, my mom was there with sandwiches and a determined look on her face. She had been busy. "I called the wedding planner," she announced. "I told her the wedding is off due to unforeseen circumstances. We'll lose the deposit, but it's better than losing the whole amount." "What about the venue? The caterer?" I asked, feeling overwhelmed. "I'm handling it," she said, her tone leaving no room for argument. "Your father and I will take care of the financial fallout from the cancellation. You just focus on you." I felt a surge of gratitude so strong it almost brought me to tears again. My parents were my rock. While Mark's family was built on a foundation of lies and deceit, Mine was built on love and unwavering support. With the practicalities being handled, my mind turned back to the text message from Chloe, Mark's sister. She said she knew things. Now that I had an official case number, her information could be crucial. It was time to take the risk. I found a quiet corner and dialed her number. She picked up on the second ring. "Anna?" she said, her voice a hushed whisper. "I was so hoping you would call." "It's me," I said. "You said you had information for me." "I do," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "But I can't talk now. My mom is here. She's not doing well. She's been screaming and throwing things all morning." A small, dark part of me felt a flicker of satisfaction at that image. "Can you meet me?" she asked, her voice urgent. "Somewhere public. Somewhere she wouldn't think to look." "Where?" I asked. "There's a coffee shop downtown, the Daily Grind," she said. "In an hour?" "I'll be there," I said. I told Sarah and my parents where I was going. My dad immediately wanted to come with me. "No, Dad," I said. "I need to do this alone. If she sees you, she might get scared and not talk. I need to know what she knows." He looked like he wanted to argue, but my mom put a hand on his arm. "She's right, honey. This is her fight. We just need to be here when she gets back." Reluctantly, he agreed. As I got ready to leave, I felt a nervous energy buzzing under my skin. This felt different from the bank and the police. This was personal. I was stepping back into the viper's nest, even if it was just to talk to one of its younger, hopefully less venomous inhabitants. I didn't know what Chloe was going to tell me, but I had a feeling it was going to be the key that unlocked everything. And I was ready to hear it. I was ready for the whole ugly truth. The Daily Grind was a busy, anonymous sort of place, filled with the smell of roasted coffee and the low chatter of strangers. It was the perfect spot for a clandestine meeting. I chose a small table in the back corner where I could see the entrance. I ordered a black coffee I didn't want, just to have something to do with my hands. Every person who walked through the door made my heart jump. Finally, I saw her. Chloe slipped in, looking small and nervous. She was wearing a hoodie with the hood pulled up, and she kept her head down as she scanned the room. Our eyes met, and she quickly walked over to my table, sliding into the chair opposite me. She didn't take her hood down. "Thank you for coming," she whispered, not looking at me. She was staring at her hands, which were twisting a napkin into shreds. "You said you had something to tell me," I said, keeping my voice low and even. I wasn't here to make friends. I was here for information. She took a shaky breath. "It's worse than you think," she said. "The money? It wasn't for a handbag or a spa trip. Not really. I mean, that's what she spent some of it on. But that wasn't the reason she took it." "Then what was the reason?" I pressed. She finally looked up at me, and her eyes were filled with a mixture of fear and shame. "My mom has a gambling problem," she said, the words rushing out in a torrent. "A bad one. Online casinos, mostly. She's been doing it for years. My dad knows about it, but he just pays off the debts when they get too big. He enables her. He always has." I stared at her, stunned. A gambling problem. It made a sick kind of sense. The desperation, the need for large amounts of cash, the extravagant spending to keep up appearances, to pretend everything was fine. "A few months ago," Chloe continued, her voice barely audible, "she got in deep. Really deep. She owed over $60,000 to some very unsavory online lenders. They were threatening her. She was terrified. That's when she came up with the plan." "The plan to take my money," I said, the words tasting like poison. Chloe nodded, tears welling in her eyes. She went to Mark. She cried. She told him she would be ruined, that the family would be ruined. She manipulated him. She told him you would understand, that you had plenty of money, and that once the wedding was over, you could all sort it out as a family. And he just agreed? I asked, my voice laced with disbelief. The man I loved, the man I was going to build a life with, just agreed to steal from me? He fought her at first, Chloe said, as if that was some sort of defense. I heard them arguing. He said it was wrong, but my mom, she can be very persuasive. She told him it was the only way to save her. She asked him who he was more loyal to, his own mother or that girl. That girl. The words hit me like a slap in the face. That's all I was to them. An outsider. A bank account. So he did it, Chloe whispered. He got your password. He made the transfer from your apartment one afternoon when you were at work. He moved the money into his own savings account first, to make it harder to trace immediately. Then, over the next few days, he transferred it in smaller chunks to my mother's account. My blood ran cold. It was methodical. It was premeditated. This wasn't a moment of weakness. It was a calculated, cold-blooded theft. How do you know all this? I asked, my suspicion flaring. How do you know the details? Chloe flinched. I saw the bank statements, she admitted. Mark is careless. He leaves his laptop open. I saw a statement for his account on the screen one day. I saw the $50,000 deposit from you and then the series of withdrawals. I confronted him about it. What did he say? He told me to mind my own business, she said, her voice bitter. He said I didn't understand. He said he was handling it. He said he loved you and that he would pay you back someday. Pay me back? I scoffed. With what? He doesn't have any money. His whole life is funded by his parents. I know, she said quietly. He was lying. To me and to himself. We sat in silence for a moment. The information was swirling in my head. Connecting all the dots, filling in all the blanks. The lies, the excuses, the strange behavior. It all made a horrible, perfect sense now. Why are you telling me this, Chloe? I asked, looking at her directly. What's in it for you? She looked down at her shredded napkin again. Because I'm tired of it, she said, her voice filled with a sudden, surprising anger. I'm tired of her. I'm tired of the lies and the secrets. I'm tired of my dad just letting it all happen. She's a black hole, and she's sucking us all down with her. What she did to you, it was the last straw. You were good to me, Anna. You always treated me like a person, not like an afterthought. You don't deserve this. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She slid it across the table to me. This is a printout of the statement I saw. It shows the transfer from your account into his. It's not everything, but it's a start. It's proof that he lied. I unfolded the paper. There it was, in black and white. A credit of $50,000 from an account number I recognized as my own, and then a series of debits, all to another account. Thank you, Chloe, I said, my voice thick with emotion. This was it. This was the concrete evidence I needed. This went beyond suspicion. This was proof. There's more, she said, her voice dropping to a whisper again. Mark and my mom, they have a joint savings account. A secret one. My dad doesn't even know about it. That's where the money ended up. That's their slush fund. How do you know? I asked. I overheard them talking about it a long time ago, she said. She called it their emergency fund. I can't prove it exists, but I know it does. If the police can find that account, they'll find your money. Or what's left of it. I folded the paper and put it in my purse. It felt as heavy as a brick. You're taking a big risk by helping me, I said, looking at her. Your family will be furious. A small, sad smile touched her lips. What family? She said. It's not a family, it's a sinking ship. I'm just trying to get to a lifeboat before it all goes under. Just be careful, Anna. My mother is vindictive. When she feels cornered, she gets vicious, and Mark will do whatever she says. I'll be careful, I said. Thank you, Chloe, for everything. She nodded, pulled her hood tighter around her face, and stood up. "Good luck," she whispered, and then she was gone, slipping out of the coffee shop as quietly as she had entered. I sat there for a long time, staring at the empty chair. The whole ugly picture was now complete. It wasn't just about a greedy mother-in-law and a weak son. It was about addiction, manipulation, and a family rotten to its core. And I had almost married into it. The thought made me feel sick to my stomach. But the sickness was mixed with a new, harder feeling. Resolve. Chloe had given me a weapon. Now I just had to figure out the most effective way to use it. This was no longer just about getting my money back. This was about justice. This was about making sure they couldn't do this to anyone else ever again. The rehearsal dinner was just the opening act. The real show was about to begin. I went straight from the coffee shop to my parents' hotel room. I walked in and found them sitting with Sarah, a tense and worried silence hanging in the air. "What happened?" my dad asked, standing up as soon as he saw me. I didn't say anything at first. I just opened my purse, took out the folded piece of paper Chloe had given me, and laid it on the coffee table. "What's this?" my mom asked, picking it up. I watched her face as she read it. Her expression shifted from confusion to dawning horror, and then to pure, cold fury. She handed it to my dad. His reaction was even more potent. His face turned red, and a muscle in his jaw started to twitch. That... He couldn't seem to find the words. He just kept staring at the paper. "It's a copy of Mark's bank statement," I explained, my voice devoid of emotion. "It shows the $50,000 transfer from my account into his." "Where did you get this?" Sarah asked, her eyes wide. "From Chloe," I said. "Mark's sister. She met me. She told me everything." And so, for the second time that day, I recounted the whole sordid tale. I told them about Carol's gambling addiction. I told them about the online loan sharks. I told them about the secret joint account she shared with Mark. I told them how they had systematically planned and executed the theft of my life savings. When I finished, the room was silent. My mom was crying softly. My dad was pacing back and forth like a caged tiger. Sarah just looked at me with a mixture of pity and rage. "The police," my dad finally said, his voice a low growl. "We take this to the police right now. This is irrefutable proof." "I agree," I said. "I'm going to call Officer Miller and tell her I have new evidence. This should speed things up." "What about a lawyer?" Sarah asked. "Have you thought about that?" "Your mother and I already made some calls this morning," my dad said, stopping his pacing. "We have an appointment for you tomorrow afternoon with a man named Arthur Vance. He's one of the best financial litigation lawyers in the state. He specializes in cases of fraud and asset recovery." I was floored. In the midst of all this chaos, my parents were already 10 steps ahead, building a fortress around me. "Thank you," I said, feeling that familiar lump in my throat. "I don't know what I would do without you." "You'll never have to find out," my mom said, coming over to hug me. My phone, which had been silent for a few hours, buzzed on the table. It was a text from a number I didn't recognize. My heart seized for a second, thinking it might be Carol or one of her cronies. I cautiously opened it. "Anna, this is David Peterson," it read. "Mark's father. I need to speak with you. I am so deeply sorry for what Carol said. I can only imagine how hurt you must be. Please, can we talk?" I showed the phone to my dad. He snorted in disgust. Now he wants to talk. A little late for that, isn't it? Where was he when his wife was humiliating you in front of a room full of people? He looked confused, I said, thinking back to the dinner. He asked what money I was talking about. Chloe said he enables Carol, but she also said he doesn't know about their secret account. Maybe he really doesn't know the full extent of it. Or maybe he's just a good actor, my dad countered, his voice hard. Don't trust any of them, Anna. I don't, I said. But he might be a weak link. If he really is in the dark about how bad things are, the truth could make him an ally. Or at the very least, it could drive a wedge between him and Carol and make it harder for them to present a united front. Sarah nodded in agreement. She's right. If he's the one with the actual family money, getting him on your side could be a powerful move. He could pressure them to pay you back without a long, drawn-out court battle. I thought about it for a moment. Talking to him felt like a risk. But not talking to him could be a missed opportunity. I needed to control the narrative. I needed to be the one to tell him the truth. Before Mark and Carol could spin their own web of lies. Okay, I decided. I'll talk to him, but on my terms. I typed out a reply. David, I am willing to have one conversation with you. Alone. Meet me at the lobby of the Grandview Hotel in 1 hour. If you bring Mark or Carol, I will turn around and walk away. And you will not hear from me again until you are served with a subpoena. I hit send. The message was harsh, but it needed to be. I was done being accommodating. I was done being polite. This was a negotiation, and I was setting the terms. Good, my dad said, reading the message over my shoulder. He gave a grim nod of approval. Let him know you're not playing games. As I prepared to meet David, I felt a shift in my own demeanor. The grief was still there, but it was being overshadowed by a cold, hard anger. This wasn't just about my stolen money anymore. It was about the profound disrespect, the lies, the manipulation, the assumption that I was weak, that I was stupid, that I would just roll over and accept their betrayal. They had fundamentally misjudged me. They thought I was a doormat. They were about to find out I was a hornet's nest. And they had just kicked it. The lobby of the Grandview Hotel was opulent and impersonal, all marble floors and hushed voices. It was neutral territory. David was already there, sitting in an armchair looking lost. He was a man who was used to being in charge, a successful businessman who exuded confidence. But today, he just looked old and tired. He stood up as I approached. Anna, he said, his voice strained. Thank you for coming. I'm not here for pleasantries, David, I said, remaining standing. I wanted to keep the power dynamic clear. I was not here to be comforted. I'm here because you asked for a conversation. So talk. He flinched at my tone but nodded. I want to apologize for Carol's behavior. It was inexcusable. Deplorable. I have no words. I'm not interested in your apologies for her words, I said coldly. I'm interested in actions. Specifically, the action of $50,000 being transferred from my bank account into your son's. David's face went slack with shock. It was clear this was news to him. His confusion from the dinner was genuine. What? He stammered. $50,000? What are you talking about? Mark wouldn't do that. Oh, he would, I said, my voice dripping with ice. And he did. I have the bank statements to prove it. I've already filed a police report. The color drained from his face. A police report? Anna, this is a family matter. We can handle this privately. There's no need to involve the authorities. It stopped being a family matter when your son and your wife conspired to commit a felony against me, I retorted. This is a criminal matter now. He sank back into the chair, looking utterly defeated. He ran a hand over his face. I don't understand. Why would he do this? Why would Carol... He trailed off, a look of dawning comprehension on his face. Her debts. So you do know, I said. You know she has a gambling problem. He nodded miserably. I knew she played some online games. I knew she sometimes spent a little too much. I've helped her out before. But I had no idea it was this bad. I had no idea she would involve Mark or you. She owed over $60,000 to online lenders, David, I said, deciding to lay all the cards on the table. They were threatening her, so she and Mark cooked up a plan to borrow my house fund to pay them off. David looked like he was going to be sick. $60,000. Oh, God. They moved the money into a secret account, I continued, pressing my advantage. A joint savings account that only Mark and Carol have access to. Does that sound like a family matter to you, David? Or does it sound like a conspiracy to defraud me? He was speechless. He just stared at the floor, the full weight of his wife's and son's betrayal crashing down on him. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. He was a victim in this too, in his own way. A victim of his own willful blindness. "What do you want, Anna?" He finally whispered, his voice hoarse. "I want my money back," I said, my voice hard as steel. "All of it, $50,000. I want it transferred back into my account by the end of the business day tomorrow." He looked up at me, his eyes pleading. "I can do that. I'll give you the money myself. Just please, drop the police report. Think of Mark's future. A felony charge will ruin him." I felt a flash of disgust. Even now, his first instinct was to protect his son from the consequences of his own actions. "His future?" I asked, my voice rising. "What about my future?" "He didn't just steal my money, David. He stole my trust. He stole the future I thought we were going to have. He stood by and let his mother humiliate me. And he was planning to stand by and let me marry him, all while knowing he had robbed me. He ruined his own future. I'm just holding him accountable for it. Please, Anna," he begged. "He's my son." "And I was supposed to be your daughter," I shot back. "Your family had a funny way of showing it." I took a breath, calming myself. I needed to be strategic, not just emotional. "Here is my offer, David," I said, my voice low and controlled. "And it's the only one you're going to get. You will transfer the $50,000 to me by 5 p.m. tomorrow. That is non-negotiable. If the money is not in my account, I will not only proceed with the criminal charges, but I will also hand over this evidence to my lawyer, who will be filing a civil suit against Mark and Carol for fraud, emotional distress, and punitive damages. I will take you all to the cleaners. I will make sure the story is on the front page of the local news. Prominent businessman's son and wife defraud fiancé on eve of wedding. How does that sound for a headline?" He paled, the threat hitting its mark. His public reputation was clearly something he valued. "However," I continued, "if the money is in my account by the deadline, I will agree to drop the civil suit. I will not come after your personal assets." "And the criminal charges?" he asked, his voice hopeful. "The criminal charges are not mine to drop," I said, enjoying the look of despair that returned to his face. "That is up to the district attorney's office now. I have filed a report and provided evidence of a felony. The state will decide whether or not to prosecute. But," I added, offering a tiny strategic crumb, "my level of cooperation with the DA might be influenced by your family's actions over the next 24 hours. It was a bluff mostly. I had every intention of cooperating fully, but he didn't need to know that. He needed to feel like he had some small measure of control, some way to mitigate the disaster." "I understand," he said, nodding slowly. He looked like a man who had aged 10 years in 10 minutes. "You have until 5 p.m. tomorrow," I repeated. "And David, this conversation is between you and me. If I get so much as a text message from Mark or Carol, the deal is off. Do you understand?" "I understand," he said, his voice a hollow echo. "Good," I said. I turned and walked away without another word, leaving him to sit alone in the cavernous lobby with the ruins of his family's reputation. As I walked out into the bright afternoon sun, I didn't feel triumph. I just felt a grim, weary satisfaction. I had drawn the battle lines. I had set the terms of their surrender. Now, all I had to do was wait and see if they were smart enough to accept them. The next 24 hours were the longest of my life. I stayed holed up in Sarah's apartment with my parents, a temporary command center for my personal war. My father was on the phone with Arthur Vance, the lawyer, giving him a full briefing. My mother was methodically canceling the last of the wedding vendors, her voice calm and firm as she dismantled the celebration that was never meant to be. Sarah kept a steady supply of coffee and food coming, a silent, solid presence that kept me grounded. I tried not to look at my phone, but it was impossible. Every buzz sent a jolt of anxiety through me. I was half expecting Mark or Carol to ignore my warning and try to contact me, to plead or threaten, but there was only silence from their end. It was an unnerving quiet, the calm before a storm. I spent most of the day on the phone myself, but for different reasons. I had to call my boss and explain that I wouldn't be taking the next 2 weeks off for my honeymoon after all. I just said the wedding was canceled and left it at that. He was surprisingly understanding. Then came the harder calls to my aunts and uncles and cousins, the ones who had already traveled into town for the wedding. I had to explain to them that the wedding was off, without going into the sordid details. I just called it an irreconcilable betrayal of trust. They were shocked and sympathetic, and promised to keep the news quiet for now. Each call was like picking at a scab, a painful reminder of the public humiliation that was yet to come. At 3 p.m., I had a conference call with my new lawyer, Arthur Vance. His voice was deep and reassuring, the sound of expensive competence. "Anna," he said, after my father had introduced us, "your father has given me the outlines of the situation. First, let me say I am very sorry for what you are going through. What was done to you is not only morally reprehensible, it is unequivocally illegal." "Thank you," I said. "I just want to get my money back and see them face some consequences." "We will do everything in our power to make that happen," he assured me. "The evidence you've obtained from Mark's sister is a powerful tool. We can use it to leverage a swift return of your funds. Your demand for the $50,000 by 5 p.m. today was an excellent move. It puts the pressure squarely on them." "His father, David, seemed ready to pay," I said. "He was mostly concerned about the criminal charges." "As he should be," Arthur said. "Grand larceny is a very serious charge. Now, you told him that your cooperation with the DA would be influenced by their actions. Let's be clear about that. You have a right, as the victim, to tell the DA's office that you have been made whole, that your money has been returned. While the decision to prosecute ultimately rests with them, they do take the victim's wishes into consideration. If the Petersons comply fully, we can express to the DA that you would prefer to see this resolved without a criminal trial." "And if they don't?" I asked. "If they don't," Arthur said, his voice hardening, "we will unleash hell. We will pursue the civil case with extreme prejudice. We will subpoena every financial record they have. We will depose Mark, Carol, and David under oath. We will make their lives a living nightmare. And I will personally make sure the DA's office has every piece of evidence and every ounce of your story to pursue the maximum possible criminal penalties." Hearing him lay it out so clearly was both terrifying and empowering. This was real. The consequences were real. "For now, we wait," Arthur concluded. "The ball is in their court. Call me the minute 5 p.m. passes, whether the money is there or not." The last 2 hours crawled by. I sat on Sarah's couch, my laptop open to my online banking page. I must have refreshed it 100 times. 4:30, 4:45, 4:55. My heart was pounding in my chest. What if he didn't do it? What if they had called my bluff? What if they had decided to fight? My dad sat in the armchair opposite me, his arms crossed, his face a grim mask. My mom and Sarah were pretending to read magazines in the kitchen, but I knew they were watching me. The tension in the small apartment was thick enough to cut with a knife. 4:58. Nothing. 4:59. Nothing. My stomach dropped. They were going to fight. This was going to get so much uglier. Then, just as the clock on my laptop ticked over to 5 p.m., the page refreshed. And there it was. A new transaction. "Incoming wire transfer." The screen read, "Amount 50,000. I gasped. "It's here," I whispered. "The money, it's here." My dad leaned forward, peering at the screen. A slow smile spread across his face. My mom and Sarah rushed over, crowding around the laptop. "He did it," Sarah breathed, a look of disbelief on her face. "The old man actually did it." A wave of relief so powerful it made me dizzy washed over me. I had it. I had my money back. I had won the first battle. Call Arthur, my dad said, his voice triumphant. I picked up my phone and dialed the lawyer's number. He answered immediately. The money is in my account, I said, my voice shaking with relief. The full 50,000. Excellent, Arthur said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. That is excellent news. David Peterson is a smart man. He knows a losing battle when he sees one. So what happens now? I asked. Now we hold up our end of the bargain, he said. I will draft a letter to David's attorney, because I assure you he has one by now, confirming receipt of the funds and stating that we will not be pursuing a civil suit. I will also contact the DA's office. I will inform them that you have been fully reimbursed and that, while you will cooperate with any investigation they choose to pursue, you do not wish to see the matter prosecuted criminally. So Mark and Carol could still be charged? I asked. It's possible, but less likely now, he explained. With the victim made whole and expressing a desire not to press charges, the DA may decide they have bigger fish to fry. They might just close the case. But, he added, they will always have that file. If Mark or Carol ever step out of line again, their history will be waiting for them. It wasn't the public flogging I had fantasized about in my angriest moments, but it was something. It was a permanent mark on their record, a shadow that would follow them. And more importantly, I had my money back. I was free of them. After I hung up with Arthur, my dad opened a bottle of wine that he had bought just in case. We all had a glass, a small, quiet celebration of a victory that felt more like a survival. As I sipped the wine, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Chloe. I heard my dad on the phone with the bank. It read, "Did you get it?" I got it, I typed back. Thank you, Chloe. I couldn't have done it without you. I'm glad, she replied. He just told my mom what he did. She is losing her mind. She's screaming that he betrayed her and Mark, that he sided with me. Are you safe? I asked, a knot of concern tightening in my stomach. I'm leaving, the next text said. I packed a bag. I'm going to stay with a friend from college for a while. I can't be here anymore. I think I'm finally free. I looked at her message and then at the balance in my bank account. Maybe I wasn't the only one who had been set free today. The toxic rot at the heart of the Peterson family was finally being exposed, and the fallout was just beginning. Carol had lost her secret fund. Her enabler husband was finally pushing back. Her daughter had abandoned her, and her son was now a disgraced, unemployed charity case with a police file attached to his name. My wedding was in ashes. My heart was broken. But I had my money. I had my family. And I had my self-respect. And as I looked at the relieved faces of my parents and my best friend, I realized I had come out of this richer than I had ever been before. The price of the lesson was high, but the value of the truth was priceless. The days following the non-wedding were strange and surreal. The first thing I did was move out of the apartment I had shared with Mark. My dad, Sarah, and a couple of my dad's burly friends from his golf club showed up on Saturday morning, the day I was supposed to have been walking down the aisle. We packed up my life in a matter of hours. My clothes, my books, my half of the furniture. We worked with a grim, efficient silence. Mark wasn't there. He had apparently gone to stay with a friend, too ashamed or too cowardly to face me. He had left a single, pathetic note on the kitchen counter. Anna, I am so sorry. I never meant to hurt you. I love you. Please, can we talk? I read the note, felt absolutely nothing, and then crumpled it up and threw it in the trash bag with the rest of the garbage. Love? He didn't know the meaning of the word. Love wasn't theft. Love wasn't lies. Love wasn't letting his mother call me inadequate while he sat in silence. His love was a poison, and I was just lucky I had found the antidote before it was too late. We moved my things into a storage unit for the time being. I would stay with Sarah until I found a new place of my own. A place that was just mine. A place with no shared secrets or hidden lies. As we were loading the last box into the truck, a car pulled up. It was David. He got out and approached my father, his face haggard. I just wanted to, he started. But my dad held up a hand, stopping him. There's nothing to say, David, my dad said, his voice cold. She's out. You can have the apartment. You can have the son. We're done here. David looked past my father at me. His eyes were filled with a deep, profound sadness. Anna, he said, his voice cracking. For what it's worth, I am truly sorry. I failed. I failed you. I failed my son. I see that now. I just looked at him. I didn't offer him forgiveness. I didn't offer him comfort. I just nodded once, a sharp final gesture. Then I got into the car with Sarah and we drove away, leaving him standing on the curb in front of the building that held so many of my broken dreams. A week later, I got a call from Officer Miller. Ms. Davies, she said, I'm calling to give you an update on your case. The district attorney's office has reviewed the file. And? I asked, my heart starting to beat a little faster. They've decided not to press charges at this time, she said. Given that the funds were returned in full and you've expressed that you don't wish to pursue the matter criminally, they've chosen to close the case. It will remain on file, but there will be no active prosecution. I felt a complex mix of emotions. Relief, because it meant I wouldn't have to go through a draining and public trial. And a small, nagging flicker of disappointment. A part of me had wanted to see them in a courtroom. I wanted to see Carol have to answer for her actions in front of a judge. However, Officer Miller continued, the detective assigned to your case, Detective Murphy, did pay a visit to Mr. Ace Peterson and his mother. He did? I asked, surprised. Yes, it was just a friendly conversation, she said, and I could hear the quotation marks in her voice. He informed them that while the DA was not pursuing charges now, the file was still open. He explained, in great detail, the potential penalties for grand larceny in this state. He made it very clear that any future financial misconduct on their part would be looked at with extreme scrutiny. He said he wanted to make sure they understood the gravity of the situation. A slow smile spread across my face. So they didn't get off completely scot-free. They had been paid a visit by the police. They had been read the riot act. They had been made to sweat. It was a small thing, but it was deeply satisfying. Thank you, Officer Miller, I said. Thank you for taking me seriously. It was our pleasure, Ms. Davies, she replied. You take care of yourself. The final loose end was Chloe. She had been texting me sporadically, letting me know she was safe and staying with her friend a few states away. She had found a temporary job at a coffee shop and was looking for her own apartment. My dad offered to help me, she texted one day. He offered to pay for my deposit and first month's rent. He said he was proud of me for getting out. That's great, Chloe, I replied. He and my mom are in counseling. Her next text read, or at least he's going. He told her if she didn't go with him and stick with the gambling addiction program, he was filing for divorce. I stared at the message. David was finally finding his backbone. The shock of what had happened had finally woken him up from his long, complacent slumber. And Mark? I typed, my fingers hesitating for a moment. I didn't really care, but a part of me was curious about the fallout for him. A mess, she wrote back. Dad cut him off completely. Told him he had to pay him back for the $50,000 he gave you. He's living on a friend's couch. He had to give up the lease on the apartment. He calls me sometimes, crying. He blames me. He blames Mom. He blames everyone but himself. It was a pathetic image, but I felt no sympathy. He had made his bed. He had chosen his mother's lies over a future with me. Now he could live with the consequences of that choice. A few months passed. I found a new apartment, a bright, sunny place that was all my own. I filled it with new furniture that I bought with my own money. I spent my weekends with Sarah, exploring our city, trying new restaurants, and just enjoying the simple freedom of being on my own. The pain of the betrayal was still there, a faint scar on my heart, but it was fading with each passing day. I was healing. One afternoon, I was having coffee with Sarah at an outdoor cafe. It was a beautiful spring day. The sun was warm on my face. "You seem happy," she said, smiling at me over her cup. "I am," I said, and I was surprised to find that it was true. "I feel light, like I dropped 100 pounds of dead weight." Just then, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. For a second, the old anxiety flared up. I took a breath and opened it. "Anna, it's Chloe. I'm back in town for a few days to see my dad. I was wondering if you'd be willing to meet up. I have something for you." I was hesitant. I had closed that chapter of my life. But Chloe had been my one ally in all of this. I owed her a meeting, at the very least. "Okay," I replied. "Where and when?" We agreed to meet at a park near my new apartment. When I saw her, I was struck by how different she looked. She was standing taller. The nervous, haunted look in her eyes was gone. She looked peaceful. "You look good, Chloe," I said. "I feel good," she said with a genuine smile. Getting away was the best thing I ever did. We walked along the path for a few minutes, making small talk. She told me about her new job, her new friends. She seemed truly happy. "So," I finally asked, "you said you had something for me." She stopped walking and reached into her bag. She pulled out a small velvet jewelry box. "My dad and I were cleaning out some of my mom's things," she explained. "He's making her sell off a lot of her jewelry and designer stuff to pay him back for her debts. We found this in the back of her closet." She handed the box to me. I opened it. Inside, nestled on the velvet, was a stunning diamond ring. It was a classic, elegant design, and the central stone was at least 3 times the size of the one Mark had given me. It was breathtaking. "It was my grandmother's," Chloe said quietly. "My dad's mother. She left it to him, to be given to the woman my brother married. My mom hid it. She never wanted you to have it. She told Mark it was too good for you, and made him buy you that other, smaller ring with his own money, which, of course, was actually money my dad had given him." I stared at the ring, speechless. The audacity, the sheer, calculated cruelty of it. It was one final posthumous insult from Carol. "My dad wants you to have it," Chloe said. "He knows it doesn't change anything. He knows it doesn't make up for what they did. But he said my grandmother would have wanted you to have it. He called it a reparation, a down payment on restoring the family's honor or what's left of it." I looked from the glittering ring to Chloe's earnest face. I thought about Carol, a woman so consumed by her own jealousy and insecurity that she would rather hide a family heirloom than see it on my finger. I thought about Mark, a man so weak that he went along with the charade. And I thought about David, a man trying, too late, to make amends for a lifetime of enabling. I closed the box and handed it back to Chloe. "No," I said, my voice gentle but firm. She looked confused. "But why not? It's beautiful. It's valuable." "It is beautiful," I agreed. "But it's not mine. It's part of a story that I'm no longer a part of. My story is different now. I'm writing a new one." I smiled at her. "Tell your dad I appreciate the gesture. I really do. It means something that he tried. But my healing doesn't have a price tag. And it certainly doesn't come in the form of a diamond ring from a family that broke my heart." Chloe looked at the box in her hand and then back at me. A slow smile of understanding spread across her face. "You're right," she said. "You're completely right." "What will you do with it?" I asked. She shrugged. "Maybe my dad will sell it and donate the money to a charity for gambling addiction. That seems fitting." We started walking again, a comfortable silence between us. The sun was starting to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. It was the end of another day, the end of another chapter. "I heard Carol and Mark are living together now," Chloe said, her voice casual. "In some small rented condo an hour out of town. He's working at a big box store. She's still her." I pictured them together, trapped in a small space, their shared toxicity poisoning the air between them. A weak man and a bitter woman, with nothing left but their resentment and their secrets. It was a miserable ending, and it was the one they had earned. I'm happy for you, Anna, Chloe said as we reached the edge of the park. I'm glad you got away. Me too, I said. And I'm happy for you too. We hugged, a real warm hug between two survivors, and then we went our separate ways. I walked back to my apartment, the evening air cool on my skin. I thought about the ring that should have been bigger. Carol had been right, in a way. The ring she had allowed me to have was a symbol of what she thought I was worth. It was small. It was insignificant. But the ring I had just been offered, the one I had turned down, was also a symbol. It was a symbol of their guilt, their regret, their desperate attempt to buy my forgiveness. I didn't need a bigger ring. I didn't need their validation or their apologies or their money. I had everything I needed. I had my freedom. I had my strength. And I had a future that was sparkling brighter than any diamond they could ever offer me. They had tried to make me feel small, but in the end, they were the ones who had been diminished. And I had never felt bigger